It is now March 21st, just after midnight on the East Coast, and it was reported a couple hours ago that Iran fired two missiles at the U.S. UK base in Diego Garcia. These two missiles are IRBMs, or intermediate range ballistic missiles, and one failed in flight and the other did not hit its target, suspected to be shot down. Now, a lot has happened this last week to include the IRGC's strategy to keep the Strait of Hormuz closed, and we will get into that in a moment. But earlier today, a lot was said. For example, President Trump made mention that we may be considering winding down operations against Iran, but that other nations may guard the Straits of Hormuz. But then he also added that we don't want a ceasefire, that we don't need one. You don't do a ceasefire when you are literally obliterating the other side. That's a quote. Of course, Iran has come back, or the IRGC has come back and said that they do not want a ceasefire either. The U.S. has also stated they will temporarily lift sanctions on Iranian oil for the next 30 days. This is oil that is stuck at sea so that they can hit the energy market. And earlier, the United Kingdom approved the use of its bases for the U.S. to launch strikes on Iranian sites that target the Strait of Hormuz. And Trump has responded saying that this comes as very late news. Trump has also lambasted NATO again for failing to meet the moment and provide aid to the Strait of Hormuz problem. Now, before Trump lambasted them or roasted them on his social media, there were a series of countries that have come forward and said that they will provide aid that is appropriate to stabilizing the situation with the Strait of Hormuz, but they did not elaborate on what that aid is going to look like, and that, of course, will be forthcoming in the next week, 2 or 3. And earlier today, it was announced that an additional 2,500 Marines from the 11th MEU off the West Coast will be joining the 31st MEU from Okinawa, Japan, that has already been sent. Both will be going to Iran. And so, of course, this now opens the door to boots on the ground. Now, traditionally, when we heard the term boots on the ground, this was meant to for invasion, for the purposes of invading and holding and toppling a regime and staying there for the next 10, 20 years. It really brings back the memories of the War on Terror. But in this instance, the possibility of using the Marines for boots on the ground would be to, say, take an island. And so, of course, top of list is Karg Island, where the primary flow of oil, of the IRGC oil, comes from, about 90%, in fact. And then the other use of these Marines would be to maybe take the smaller islands within the Strait of Hormuz. And so that is what everybody is currently discussing with regards to the use of these two Marine Expeditionary Units. Now, I've covered in other previous TikToks that you can utilize these Marines for other missions besides boots on the ground. In fact, I went over the mission set of a Marine Expeditionary Unit, and one of the things that they could absolutely do is reinforce defensive positions of key locations outside of Iran, to include our military bases and our embassies. That said, the likelihood of us using boots on the ground in Iranian territory is increasingly likely. Now, of course, islands are one thing, but mainland Iran is something completely different. And nobody can picture us being able to secure safe passage through the Strait of Hormuz without seizing certain territory along the coastline and just beyond. And this is definitely an increasing possibility. Which is exactly why over the last week, U.S. forces have been decimating key targets all along this area, to include Qasem Island and in the coast. They are taking out all manner and sorts of key targets that could be utilized to target our ships when they eventually transit the strait. And an example of primary concern are anti-ship rockets that are fired from multi-launch rocket systems, specifically the Fajr 3 and 5. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Actually, I really don't care. Here's a picture of them on full military display. And the reason why they are of concern is because they're stationed on Qasem Island, among other places within the strait, and they have a range of 27 miles, and this is a picture of their range fan. Fortunately, though, they are also easy to spot. That location on that previous picture is actually this pin here on the map, and as you can see, it's a very flat, open, wide beach. That lane right here, in fact, is a two-lane route or highway, to give you more context of size. And so they would be easy to spot. The downfall is that they can launch upwards of 12 rockets in under 2 minutes. So they can shoot and scoot. But fortunately for us, and unfortunately for them, the ability for us to collect their target, collect their location, target it, and strike is an extremely fast cycle. So it'd be a very interesting evolution if this were to occur. And trust and believe that we are seeking them out and finding them every minute of every day between now and the time that the Marines arrive to the Strait. They, of course, are not our only concern, but I wanted to use them as an example as to what we are up against and how we are going to prosecute targets now and going forward in the future. But I want to reiterate that we are doing this not only on these islands and on these coastal areas, but we are doing this far back into any reachable territory that their weapon systems could range our ships in the Strait of Hormuz. We are ensuring as best possible a permissive environment or semi-permissive environment prior to the arrival of the Marines, because they're going to have to navigate the strait and likely go take Karg Island as well. But that is probably the extent of what you're going to see as far as boots on the ground in the next coming weeks, and more to follow on this ever-evolving situation. Oh, and before I forget, circling back to my comment about the IRGC revealing their strategy all along was to control the Strait of Hormuz, and that's exactly what they're trying to do. They're trying to act strong when they're weak. It's a classic Sun Tzu technique that their neighbors are not falling for, as they are rebuking the IRGC, and they are warning the IRGC if they continue to strike targets of a non-military nature, that they will be forced to defend themselves. And so nobody is taking the side of the IRGC. Nobody is. And so they are getting very little assistance from Russia and China, as Russia and China have also abstained from any votes against or for the IRGC in the UN. The entire world is turning against the IRGC, despite what the media is telling you. And so this is kind of a whole global world approach to securing this problem, because it has global effects, but it is still just a regional conflict. And so anyways, more to follow as this unfolds. But we are seeing a pivotal moment in history where we can no longer tolerate this risk, this level of threat, this level of risk in key chokeholds of economic global implications anymore. And the rest of the world understands that, even if they are hesitating to admit it. I am the Intel Guy, and if I have missed something, forgive me, it is past midnight, but I would love to know your thoughts on boots on the ground. Is that a yes? Is that a no? Is that a maybe? Are we willing to accept some or none at all? I would really love to know everyone's thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to share, like, and follow me for more, and have a wonderful day.